I'm Kevin, and I'm joined by my co-host with Harrison Bader like hair.
Yeah, it's a weird ordeal. Katie is just proving to be childish.
Which is why I don't feel I would give $5 million to Jack Campbell.
I don't know. Baseball is one of those sports where anyone who makes the playoffs really can be a contender.
I think the Padres definitely do it.
I don't think Donovan Mitchell gets traded.
Kyrie Irving does have the track record of not being a great locker room fit, or even good locker room fit.
Bader got some luscious locks. I gotta say it.
This is Zach Bigley, the broadcaster for the Frisco Rough Riders, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin. You guys better subscribe.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. I'm Kevin. I'm joined by the man that also had this guy as his coach, but there wasn't as much drama when his time ended with Green Bay, and that, of course, is Austin.
There was definitely some, but you're right. It was not as much as this, and it's not been dragged on to the extent. Obviously, he was just fired mid-season, but this was not the case, obviously, as well. His contract ends shortly, but the question is his time over? Has he coached his last game in Dallas or not?
So this is interesting to me because I remember when we were doing it, he couldn't be fired when we were talking about firing coaches, but we're like, there's no way he's coming back. Then the Cowboys kind of had that run where they were winning games, just kind of because of the opponents they were facing. They did got some good wins against the Bucks and the Washington in one of the two games. But the thing is, to me, where if I'm Dallas, if this was he had another year left on his contract, I don't see Dallas firing him. The problem to me where I wonder about his time over in Dallas is, does another team offer him a job and does he go elsewhere? Because you did, which we haven't really talked about that, but the Bears requested to interview him, which to me made no sense. I stand on the belief that it was someone from the Bears organization that was doing McCarthy a favor because McCarthy did get a new agent, and it was kind of put it into Jerry Jones' court where he had to say, am I going to keep him or not? And then they denied that request. So, because I think if you're a team that wants McCarthy as a head coach, you just go to him through channels of tampering. This would be tampering, but I don't think tampering really matters if it works out. Of, hey, we want you to be our head coach. Just wait till the contract ends up, which is what contract ends January 14th. So we are nearing that time of where it officially ends. But I'm going to say it's not over. I feel like McCarthy comes back to Dallas. But I can't gauge.
What term would that be?
I think, because for me personally, I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he's a good coach. He's not a great coach because of what he's done in the playoffs. My main problem with him is his play calling, which is, I remember when we talked about when he was first hired, Kellen Moore was going to be play caller, and we were like, okay, this is a good idea. Because we've talked about it before. I viewed it, the problem why he got fired in Green Bay was the offense. But to me, it's very old thinking offense. He doesn't really scheme guys open. It's also weird because Kevontae Turpin, they just started using as a running back, which I think was an exciting thing, and it actually worked out for them. But I don't understand why that wasn't thought of sooner. Because they don't have a great roster on the offense, especially weapons-wise. But to me, another guy would make better use of that, which I guess you kind of see with Matt LaFleur. He's kind of an offensive guru. They still have good players, but I feel like Matt LaFleur makes use of what he has. Like, he had a bunch of rookie wide receivers, and of course they were good last year, but I do think part of it was, okay, I'm going to lean on my running game with my running back, and then he schemed guys open with wide receivers.
If he is brought back, how thin of ice is he on?
I don't think he's on that thin of ice, because it's really on Jerry. Just kind of like, it's a good thing for Jerry because they're always going to be talked about, because if the roster is good, they're going to be competing for a playoff spot, and then they'll make it to the playoffs and they'll get in, and then they'll see what happens, but they'll most likely lose. So I think it's a 3-year deal. I would bring him back for one more year, but he's not going to do that. I will make my prediction. If it's not with the Cowboys, I think he becomes the Saints head coach.
Okay. So you think that he goes to New Orleans? Obviously, they haven't decided what they're going to do with the interim coach just yet, right?
I don't think so, but I would think. Yeah, I don't think they've said anything about their interim head coach, but I do think they've had interviews. Yeah, because on the CBS Sports article, it says they have they're interviewing guys for the head coach, and one of them was Aaron Glenn. And I will say my caveat to hiring going back to McCarthy is if you're not going to do anything else to the roster and just go, hey, we're just going to draft a bunch of guys. If you're going to go sign guys, I'd be in favor of bringing someone new. But this is a similar cycle of head coaches because Ben Johnson was available last year. Mike Vrabel was available. Belichick is no longer, but you also have Pete Carroll, Aaron Glenn too, Brian Flores as well. It's a similar amount of coaches and names that I think Jerry's just like, well, these were available last year and he didn't do it. Why change now? Even though they should have changed last year. So I don't feel like it's over. But to me, McCarthy has more leverage than Jerry on this because of the contract ending. And then he can talk to other teams.
Okay. I agree with you that I don't think McCarthy's time in Dallas is over. I don't know if I think he gets a coaching job immediately or not if he does not return, but I do think he does. I think Jerry kind of played his hand whenever he decided not to let the Bears interview him, whether that was for show or not. I just don't think that was for no reason. And I'm interested to see what does happen with the Cowboys this upcoming year. Do they make a lot more moves? I would think that McCarthy would be on somewhat thin ice because you can't just keep running it back forever. But maybe you're right, and he's not because they just signed him to a new deal. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, no matter what happens. But I am intrigued.
Yeah, and I'm curious what do you think are the problems with Mike McCarthy in Dallas?
I don't know how well he prepares his players in big games. I don't really know whether or not he's going to be able to help the team grow in some ways that maybe they should be able to grow. I think that he's a solid head coach. I think he'd be a solid coordinator. But you're right, his schemes are a little bit outdated. And while he has had some success in Dallas, obviously he's won more than one playoff game in a season. And if he does return, I think he has to do something relatively quickly, because if he doesn't, I feel like the team is going to be, or the fan base is going to be pretty. They're not going to be happy at all. They're not going to be patient. They're going to be impatient regarding that.
Yeah, my thing is I do think he doesn't prepare his team for big games, but I do think he kind of set like a level of consistency. Like before the season, they were 3 straight 12-win seasons. My problem is the offense, because during those seasons they had a good offense, and last year was when, out of the 2 years he's been an offense coordinator, last year they had a pretty good offense. This year was terrible rushing, but to me he just relies on his players. So I don't think for a coordinator job he'd do well. But I would love it if he came back and they got a new offensive coordinator. But to me, that's never going to happen. He likes to be in control of the offense. But yeah, I was curious what you think, and I'll let you close this one out.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Please let us know how you feel about this whole ordeal. Are you confident that McCarthy will or will not return? And if he doesn't return, where does he go?